What's up, y'all? It's Shuffle, and we're doing a tier list after the Steadfast Steward's second update, where Hellion and Leper got reworked alongside some minor tweaks here and there throughout the cast. Normally, when I do a tier list, I just go based on overall power level, but people have always been asking me what the criteria really is, and so this is, I guess, the way I can try and explain it when it goes into my head. So the best characters are, they can win almost on their own. You have to actively throw to lose that run, because usually they're good enough to carry you through it. The next tier is going to be, they make the team better, usually just someone that can, you know, just contributes. They don't always need to do damage or whatever, but just anyone that has a meaningful positive impact without taking anything away. And that's probably gonna be the hardest one for people to wrap their heads around, because everyone makes the team better, right? You go from having an empty slot to a person, so that's good. But yeah, that's the thought process there. The next tier is they need help, meaning like they're solid enough on their own, but they do need other people to really have them do their best and succeed. The final tier is going to be the nicer way of saying the single best hero in the game, because every time we call a character the worst, someone just breaks through the wall like John Cena and goes, "No, actually, I think they're the best, and I did this and won." No character in this game is outright terrible and unusable. Don't think that. Everyone can win. You can take freaking, like, what's a horrible example? You can just take Vestal with Hand of Light, and that's the only button she has, and you can still beat the game, because the game just lets you do that. You know, if you do that for every character, it's going to be a bit harder, but you can always pull dead weight across the finish line. The other thing I want to say about the last tier is, you know, it goes from needing help, where, you know, they really like having this teammate or this token available to do a lot of stuff. The one I hear, and I immediately disregard it whenever someone tries to justify a character with them, they say, well, this person's good. I just ran this path on this team with these quirks and these items on this confession. And that's just too many things, because if you give any character enough of that, if you give them the best team you can think of, or the scientific best team if that ever exists, and you give them the meta top tier path, you give them the best abilities, they start with Jinx or Bloodthirsty, like, yeah, they're gonna do good. So it's kind of a moot point, because you can say that about everyone, which is why I look at mostly individual ability. The thing I realize as well is that I gave the tiering criteria actual definitions now, and I don't know if that's going to make it better or worse. I think people are just going to have as many issues with this as they do with another system, so be it. Now, first one, Abomination. I think Abomination is okay, but when he's on your team, he needs some help. Let's take a look at Bagby, our first ever, no, our third DLC character. The initial kit is good. You know, it's pretty solid. The human kit usually does a bit better. Absolution, Manacles, those are your winners on Wanderer. Backlash is okay. And again, on Wanderer, Rake Spam is fine. You can get a Vuln token into Rage, though. It's a ton of damage. So this is where Beast Form does the damage, whereas the human form wants to be disruptive with Manacles and Absolution to stay alive in the occasional Beast pile. The rest of the stuff isn't mega impactful. It's all useful for different things. And Rake is usually your one-button answer to spamming any fight that summons multiple units as adds. So Collector, Shambler, spam Rake. It's been the same in both games. Rake usually does enough. And there are other fights in the game too where just Rake spam and, you know, some damage trinket or whatever can do a lot of work. For paths, Unchained, one I like, but definitely kind of a clunky one. The biggest thing about it is the absolution, because this is mostly human form Abomination. There's a little bit of change in the beast kit, but for the most part, you're playing this as human because you want to upgrade absolution and have it hit himself and 2 other people. You get ideally 2 of these a fight, and it does some pretty cool stuff there. Otherwise, he's kind of a dancer character. He loses rank 4 each, so I don't think that Unchained is that good, even though I like it. Fiend, you could argue this is Wanderer Plus. You have the original human kit, and then when you transform, you have pretty good damage, but then also bleed, and your rage does not require a Vuln token to do a bunch of damage. It just does damage, and has execute, but also can manage his own stress. So there's really cool stuff here. Or Fiend. Moribund is also in kind of the same boat as Fiend. They play sort of similar, where the difference is Moribund doesn't get the damage over time, but it can burn through stress like nothing. You know, because most of the game you're trying to get rid of stress. Moribund wants stress, and it turns that stress into some pretty cool stuff. But honestly, Abomination is good, but too balanced. He's a little too balanced to really pop off and dominate the game. So usually you want him to have other people that are there setting him up, helping him, and dropping tokens and whatnot. So he's a character that you build around, but he can't do it all himself. We'll see an example of that later. Next, Bounty Hunter. I customarily put Bounty Hunter up in the top tier because, especially in Confessions with this full master kit, the dude is a menace. In Kingdoms, he starts out a little bit slow, and this isn't really a Kingdoms tier list, but if you just want to go by the same logic, he starts out a little bit slow, but he catches up pretty quick and then has a lot of good stuff to be doing. So Bounty Hunter is just a great character, especially if you think of Confessions. He lets you do a lot of stuff that you normally can't get away with doing, like Region 1 layers. If your team is too weak for a Region 1 layer, Bounty Hunter makes it possible to do it pretty consistently. So he's pretty good. And he's got double stuns. If you are not using Bounty Hunter in your teams in Confessions, you should. It doesn't matter if he disrupts the game plan of the team. He can do everything except heal and stress heal. He can go in the front, he can go in the back, he can be mid-range. He has 2 different ways to stun enemies. He has a ton of reach, he has good damage. And he has some tanking stuff. So if you haven't tried Bounty Hunter, just try him. Grab him in Region 1 if you want to, and then go kill a layer, because he gives you that ability. The hardest one's going to be the Shroud, but Shroud just like that. He's also not in the Crossroads outside of Kingdom, so I can't just tab over and show him off, but you get what I am saying. Next up, Crusader. Actively makes the team better. Turns out Mr. Generalist, who can do a lot of things pretty okay, is a pretty solid character overall. I'd say his worst path is Aggressor. Before any of the Aggressor fans come after me with their pitchforks trying to execute me, but they can't because I don't have a burn on right now, please understand that Radiance had to get a massive, massive buff before this even came close to popping off. Alright, for all the people that told me Radiance is an amazing ability and I don't understand how this character works, I don't see your ass in the feedback channel demanding a nerf because this was too good already. Alright? Let's not get it twisted. Regardless of the path, Crusader has access to Bulwark of Faith. This move's insane. One of the best taunt moves in the entire game, and a good enough reason to take Crusader by himself. However, he comes with healing and stress healing. Both things are really good. Templar is more of a guarding type of regen transfer tank. It's an interesting way to do it, but it doesn't really fit in this game just because the game doesn't really accommodate something this slow, where you stack up a bunch of regen. Crusader's already going slow because he's like the slowest character in the game, or one of the slowest. And then once you have all your regen built up, someone gets low HP, you transfer the regen to them, and they're not on Death's Door for some reason and not dying, so the regen is able to do something helpful. The way I would just say to play Templar is to just take Rallying Cry and think of it as a guard. and that's it. If you get any value out of healing, great. Regen, great. Otherwise, it is literally just a guard move. So we already have 2 paths that are kind of side grades to Wanderers and Wanderer, but honestly not better or worse, I would say. And then there's Banneret, which is Wanderer Plus. So Banneret's the best path that he has, and it's just because you can use the heal from anywhere and you get an extra charge. Like, that's pretty good. You know, compare this to Vestal. Just look at how Divine Grace gets blown away by this. You can throw this whenever, from wherever. Vestal's like, oh, I need my tokens. Hold on. Hold on. I need my tokens to make this worthwhile. Crusader makes the team better. Doesn't really... He doesn't require anything to do what he wants to do unless you're playing Aggressor. Then he needs some burn hero on there. So, like, Runaway. But otherwise... solid. Solid character. Next... yes, I am trying to make this one a little bit faster than normal because I don't want 2 hours worth of video. Yeah. All right, next one is Duelist. Our first, please help me, I am drowning Red Hook character. Every time I make a tier list and I talk about Duelist, it's always been, is she too complex? Then we don't get it. But now, in the last one, I was saying, I think we kind of got it now. Like, we figured out all the Duelist things, so I don't think it's really anything we haven't missed as a community and complexity and whatnot. And now at this point in time, at the end of 2025, I can confidently say this character needs a ton of help. Doesn't mean you can't win with her. Doesn't mean she can't do cool stuff. Doesn't mean your bloodthirsty Duelist can't pop the hell off and annihilate everything in existence, okay? But with Duelist, the stances, all of her stuff gets better in stances. She does have the ability to put herself into a stance very quickly. She does have 6 base speed with everything upgraded, I believe. Oh, she doesn't get any speed off the altar. I thought she did. But yeah, 6 base speed is pretty good. Her skills are all solid, but the stance gimmick is just a little too slow for her to work through. Because even if you have your plan, even a flowchart, and this is not a flowchart in a negative context, even if you have your rough idea of what her first, like, 3 turns are going to be and what it's going to look like, sometimes... if you're not playing Wanderer, you know, if you're playing Antagonist or Instructress and you need a different stance to use a different ability because something happened that was just not expected, you know, random crits, random turn order that doesn't work out, that kind of stuff. And that can just screw up the entire game plan. Like, if you have to switch stances but you weren't ready to do it and it screws up all of your other turns, then this character just struggles. So she can't get into a stance on turn 1 without a trinkets. Like, she can't start in a stance. Her stances are also not free actions. And yes, she can sit there and dodge tank with meditation, but really, if she is just sitting there spamming dodge and hitting like a 5 damage riposte every turn, she's not doing much to help the team go through combats. Yes, they miss an attack occasionally and she does a little bit of damage, but you can find a ton of damage other places and do it more frequently. Even on this character, instead of dodging and trying to set all that up and spam her post, even though it is fun, you can just hit Flesh, do a ton of damage, and she's fast, so she'll go first anyway. So Flesh can, you know, 2-tap some enemies, and it's like, why not do that instead of just sitting there in defensive stance or using meditation and aggressive stance or whatever and just get riposte and dodge and then just wear them down, stuff like that. So even though she is a quick character at 6 speed, her gameplay is too slow for this game. Doesn't mean she can't do well. Ruthless Instruction can now be used on Duelist and Instructress, which is pretty cool, so she can give herself her own crit token and heal her own stress. That was a nice upgrade. Antagonist, in my opinion, the best Duelist path because you don't have to deal with the dancing if you don't want to. That's usually a sticking point for a lot of people. And it just throws out debuffs. So it's constantly just weaken, 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 weaken. Vulnerable all the time. More dots now if you want it. She's got some other stuff, but honestly, the Touche being able to hit from 1 and 3 to 1 to 3 on both sides is pretty cool. Intrepid, total meme path. The damage buff she receives from dodging, which is, I believe, defensive. Yeah. So she, in defensive stance, if you miss her with an attack, she gets 20% bonus damage, 40% damage received. She dodges once, she gets like 1 or 2 points worth of damage on all her abilities, and then she has a vulnerable token until she gets hit. You dodge twice, regular attacks can take her entire health bar. She's got the lowest base HP in the game. And this path is memey. It's gambly. It could be better. But really, it just comes down to really how bad this is, and the fact that she loses all of her buff stacks if she just takes like a bleed. So there's just a lot of DOT in this game. If she has one on top of her, she dodges once, the stacks are gone anyway. This would have been nice to get addressed in the Steadfast Stewards update, but it didn't. Sad times. So, Instructress needs a buff target. Really wants something like a Moribund, a Leper, a Bounty Hunter. Just something that you can put on the team, even an Occultist with Warlock. Just something on the team that you can give buffs to, and they blow up everything you're fighting. Wanderer is, as I said, solid, but whatever. Antagonist is pretty debuffy, but really we only have a little bit of goodness out of like 4 different paths. So that's why she really needs a lot of help when she's on your team. It has to be something like dedicated with her in mind, and you have to get some good stuff for her to shine. Like one of her trinkets where she starts in a stance, for example. All right. Talking too much about Duelist. Next, Flagellant actually got a small nerf, if you can even call it that, and a buff at the same time. More finally got slightly nerfed, and all it did was get an extra turn of cooldown, but if you master it, he gets 3 taunt instead of 2. So is that really a bad thing? No. I hesitate to call this a nerf. It's more like a side grade. Yes, he can't spam it, so that is kind of a nerf. At the same time, he's got more taunt tokens. Taunt tokens, the strongest token in the game. Absolutely silly, and he gets more of them. And then, this Lash's gift came in on the recent patch for Scourge, and it's pretty cool. It's pretty strong too, but it's also really cool. When you think about that, and you think about all the other stupid stuff this character is capable of, he can literally solo the entire game. He doesn't even need a tablet to do it. He can. Insane. I mean, tablet obviously helps, but, you know, thrilling tablet. He just has so many tools. And he gets better when he has no one to melt down and piss off, so he can just keep going into Toxic. Is largely the same, 1 small nerf and 1 buff, so he's, as far as I'm concerned, he's better. Alright, this one hurts me. Grave Robber. My favorite character, personally. But Grave Robber definitely is a victim of being the first rework. So if you look at the later reworks that come in, we have like stacking buffs, we have Death's Door shenanigans, we have insane Execute 3 damage output. You know, like there's so many cool things that the new characters get. Stupid free actions, right? Revenge. That Grave Robber and Highwayman, if you go back in time, they look so vanilla now. This is back when things were simpler. You know, so like Grave Robber got some like extra crit and damage adjustments and all that for some of her paths, and like that's it. Some stuff operates a little differently, but she's largely the same character. But as far as Grave Robber goes, out of her skills, Pick to the Face is okay, but could be a lot better. Thrown Dagger doesn't do too much outside of like Deadeye. Flashing Daggers is okay, definitely wants a path. Poison Darts got a buff at the last second, so they actually got a bit better, which is nice. Absinthe is really good still. Detonite's really good still. Glint in the Dark, kind of a meme. Like, it's a range attack that has melee targeting and melee launch ranks. It's just freaking weird. Lunge, definitely need to accommodate for that on the team, so it's alright, but, you know, it's only super good on Nightsworn, in my opinion. Pirouette, again, same thing, not really great outside of Nightsworn, although you do get the buff when your stealth or the debuffs rather, get mitigated. Repartee is pretty cool, and then Shadow Fade, pretty much the same on every path. Deadeye plays like regular Grave Robber, except you press Throne Dagger and Flashing a bit more, and you give up like Pick to the face. Venom Drop, you Shadow Fade turn 1. If you want to put out a lot of blight and the fight's going long, or you can just start chucking Flashing Daggers on turn 1 anyway. So with Venom Drop, it's really just those things. It's Flashing Spam, maybe the occasional Poison Dart. I think Throne Dagger's still not that good, even with the buff. And then Shadow Fade, I prefer to Shadow Fade turn 1, but you don't have to. Nightsworn, Dance path that requires Dance Team, because you want an infinite lunge team with Grave Robber using this path, because you want to be able to lunge every single turn, so the team has to move in front of her again and again, or some immobilized stuff. And then once you do that, and she can lunge every turn, she does some pretty good damage. But the big issue with Grave Robber on every playstyle has always been the crit rates. The highest she's going is like 30 without any other, you know, buffs and circumstances. And then against combo targets, she only gets 50% crits, and honestly, she's balanced around critting. Like, all of her damage is middling because she's supposed to hit crits and get, you know, pretty good explosive damage there. But when this doesn't work out, she feels like ass to play, and that upsets me. So she needs a lot of help to get maximized. She doesn't, like, she's just a greedy character. I guess that's in character for her, but she needs to have the team set her up really hard constantly, or she's not going to do much. Hellion, the next one, I would say is a needs help character. Hellion, recently buffed, got some interesting stuff, got some really silly overpowered stuff at the same time. Like, the winded interaction changes are cool. They made the passive more streamlined. They gave her some small nerfs to various things, but they made Bloodlust into a blood combat item. And they finally balanced Howling End. I can't even say it's actually balanced, it's just they made it. They tried to balance it again. So out of her paths, Wanderer's still kind of alright. Ravager's still explosive, still does some really silly stuff. But she has to hit Death's Door, and she gets Execute 3 from, yeah. So just having this equipped. So if you have Bloodlust, not even Master, just if you have Bloodlust equipped, if she Death's Doors herself with Bloodlust or just getting hit randomly, she can Howling End and do like 4 times the normal damage, and, you know, just heal back up to 25%, which doesn't offset this winded penalty, or the slow health penalty. There are a lot of silly stuff, or silly abilities here with Ravager. So Ravager still crushes stuff, but it's also not quite the powerhouse it used to be. Berserker got some help at the last minute too, got a little bit better, but still isn't that great. But it's better than it was, and it's passable. Carcass, also passable, not as strong as it used to be either. So on the grand scheme of things, Wanderer got slightly weaker in a lot of cases, and a little bit better on some like Bloodlust. Ravager, still insane. Berserker got better. Carcass is a little bit worse, I'd say. And for Hellion, she does need help on your team. You know, she can't easily generate a lot of her own tokens unless you're doing Bloodlust, which you have to be on a certain path to do that Bloodlust to get that, you know. Actually, is it all 3? Okay, so it's just Ravager that's different, but yeah. So she always wants someone dumping tokens in there, clearing defenses for her, and she really likes having guard for like her low health stuff or taunt. So yeah, I think she's pretty good in that middle spots overall. Next up, Highwayman. Definitely same issue as Grave Robber, kind of got left behind in the olden times. Now, Highwayman in the past with like old Sharpshot was definitely your your damage monster. He pretty much carried the team by himself with damage. And now it's really just sharp shots there for all the damage. Like Wanderer just kind of does a lot of different stuff. You know, it doesn't specialize in really much. You know, you pick either a lot of range damage or melee. You can hybridize. He can steal tokens, like that's pretty cool. He has take aim, which is still decent. And then he has tracking shot, which is honestly, the more gets added to this game, tracking shot gets better. Because they add more random stealth in places. Combo has been more important with the reworks. And he ignores dodge. And he can do this every single turn. So yeah, with those things, he's pretty solid. But overall, Wanderer is kind of mid. Rogue is slightly better, but not that much better. Sharp shot is where it's at. So if you take him, it's usually going to be sharp shot. Unless you need highway robbery specifically for what you're doing, like, for instance, Act 4. Yellow Hands is okay. Like, the Riposte can do some nutty stuff. But otherwise, yeah. Yeah, like, I don't know. He's a good debuffer. So I guess instead of like focusing on the bleed damage he can put out, you want to focus on debuffing resist on everyone for him. When you play it like that, it's okay, but like he has two kind of lackluster paths, another mid path, and then he has like a really good one. Which means, you know, all he can do is give himself crit tokens. So he really wants some extra help on the team, and he wants everyone to like let him just sit where he wants to be and ignore him. So he needs a bit of help, and I guess that's all I can say. Besides the fact that you really can feel him being an old character again next to Grave Robber, considering a lot of the other stuff we got in the recent updates. Next, Jester makes your team better. With Jester, I actually got some nerfs after he came out the other side of the rework, specifically because this version of Encore used to be the Mezzo Encore, but now it's like the Wanderer one too with the bleed. And they took Encore off of, like, the good one off of the two other paths. So that actually hurts Jester, because now really the first thing you should ask yourself when you're playing this character is, do I want to Encore, and if so, which version? Because if you don't want the extra turn, then, you know, you really should reconsider picking this character for someone else, because that's really where it's at. Soloist and Virtuoso are both kind of odd. Like, Virtuoso, again, is one of those paths that just takes a long time to really build up a ton of effectiveness. So, a lot like the other path that I was talking about before with Templar, like, it feels that Virtuoso was not made for this game. You know, that's just the way it is. It's a bit too slow for the normal pace of how fights go and how bosses spike damage and whatnot, so it takes a bit of foresight to really get the most out of it, but even when you do, it's not a great return on investment. Especially Virtuoso. And then Soloist, you really want to just like spam the finales, but you only get 3 uses, which is odd. So if you want to like throw these out really quick, then you have to have a solid plan for that. Otherwise, yeah, Soloist is okay, but not amazing. Mezzo, if you ignore the tune, Mezzo's actually pretty good. This is one I definitely slept on before. But the buffs getting a little stronger is really nice, and the fact that he has solo into double dodge plus, combo the target, and bleed the target, he sets up his own finale for 100% bonus damage, and keeps himself safe doing it. The Mezzo with finale is pretty nutty. Otherwise, yeah, like Jester still has Encore on a couple paths, and Encore, I say, is the best ability in the game because it can turn into any other ability in the game. It can turn into a combat item plus an attack. It can turn into a turn that doesn't take damage over time, and then you can like pass heal. There's a lot of crazy plays you can make with Encore. And that's pretty much like all the power in Jester, besides the combo output. Like Fade to Black is still really good, Razor's Wit comboing's pretty good, and then you still have Inspiring Tomb, which is alright. Next, the other reworked character, it's Leper. Makes team better. What? I know, right? Leper historically has been a character that is very self-sufficient in terms of just being able to keep himself alive and mitigate enemy attacks with like Intimidate or just tanking it outright. But this update gave him the ability to hit Revenge on turn 1 and not have it cost a turn, and he gets a Strength token. And this is almost as good on every single pass. On Wanderer, Strength token the moment it starts. Then you have Tempest, Strength token the moment you use it, and still operates largely the same, just a little bit of a difference. Poet immediately gets some strength, and when you kill something, you get regen for the entire battle. So even the tanking path is the damage path. And then Monarch starts out a bit slow with the Oath thing. Like, this whole gimmick is a bit too slow. Not even in terms of building it up. People build this up in like 2 regions, but it still takes a little bit of time, a little bit of babysitting. It's not like the most fun thing to do. Doesn't matter what Leper path you pick, though, he hits dumbass hard. Like Chop 8 to 16, Bash Mastered 5 to 9, doesn't need to be that high, but it is. Intimidate 3 to 7, Break 6 to 12, and the block removal. And then you have Ruin if you just want to charge up some more damage also. Where you have Ruination, and then Ruin has come. You may be thinking, Shuff, he has to deal with the blinds. The blind Shuff. Yeah, you just have to give him combo tokens, which, let's see, how many characters can produce combo? 1. Surprisingly not Grave Robber. 2, 3, 4, but it's weird. 5, 6, Leper can make his own combo. 7, 8, not Vestal. Flag it, have to double check, maybe a path or something. But then, like, Abomination makes combo. So, a good chunk of the cast has access to combo. You know, on mathematical average, you're going to have a team that has access to it if you pick Leper. Especially, like, even if you random the other 3 characters, you're mathematically favored to have combo somewhere. And that's a small price to pay for the massive output of damage this character has. And you don't even have to chop. You know, if you're getting strength most of your turns with Bash, even upgraded, this is 8 to, I believe, 13 or 14 damage. And he immobilizes himself, and then he puts combo on the enemy, so he can always swing into it anyway. His character's silly. He just hits so freaking hard. You didn't need that, but that's what they gave him, so you need damage on your team, look no further. This is like your one-stop guy. Of course, you need to have something to deal with the backline, but, you know. Nothing's perfect. Man-at-Arms. If we're doing the left-right style on the tier list, Man-at-Arms is the best character in the game. Remains the best character. He's been the best since the start. The game's ending, presumably, and he's still the best character. Why? Doesn't matter what path he's on, except Sergeant now is a bit harder to get value out of in terms of what he's capable of. But this character, historically, has been able to dismantle, like carefully go in there as some kind of artisan machinist and remove each individual screw and plating and whatever to every single combat in the game and turn it into an advantage for his team. You can self-heal on Crush, which is insane. Rampart can daze, stun, still move, it's alright. Defender's still great. Bolster, arguably the best stress heal in the game once mastered. Hold the line. If he's ever out of position, no the fuck he's not. He can always be back up front where he needs to be outside of Sergeant. Bellow's got a lot of interesting interactions depending on the path. Retribution, taunt is dumb, so having more taunt is always good. Command, kind of whatever. Sort of a miss, but honestly, he doesn't need it. And then Stand Fast, they gave him more taunt on Wanderer for some reason. But yeah. And then Courageous Abandon actually got buffed, so it's not complete ass. And then Strategic Withdrawal. Mastered is a really good skill that people still don't use and think it's good. And it's very strange. Sergeant's the weakest of the 3 paths, but still not terrible. The only thing it does is it makes team building a bit awkward because you need a frontline healer. Bulwark. Plays a lot like Wanderer, except, you know, you can use your block tokens to stun enemies, and I did a run specifically with this where I had like Consecration of Fortitude, and that's really all he needed. Just some consistent way to keep getting block on his turn, and you can just spam like a stun almost every turn for the first like 4 rounds, which is insane. Let's see. Bellow again, same thing, you know, just utility, always pretty good. And Stand Fast, this was the old Stand Fast, but like, this character does not have a bad path, does not have a bad ability. And all of his moves that, as I said, disassemble the game, outside of Sergeant, do not really get changed. Because you look here, the ones I would say are super crucial are Crush, Defender, Bolster, and Hold the Line. And to an extent, Bellow, I guess. But on Sergeant, you know, look, none of these change. None of these core 3 change. Crush changes because it has to be a backline thing, but that's it. Bulwark. These change, like the shield skills change to stun and reflect the path, but Defender, Bolster don't change. Crush stays the same. Vanguard. Kind of whack, honestly, in terms of just stacking a lot for debuffs. It's kind of a pain in the ass. But look, Crush, Defender, Bolster, Hold the Line, same moves. Retribution, same move if you want it. And Bellow gets kicked away because you're supposed to be using Courageous Abandon, but who cares? Yeah, as I said, best character in the game, has been the best, has stayed the best. You see a tier list where Man-at-Arms is not the best character in the game, disregard it. Yeah, Occultist. Bad. Bad, bad, bad. What? It's always funny when I call something bad and people, you know, act like I ended humanity somehow. It's even better when they don't watch the video and they skip to the end. And then they're like, he put it here! Shuff, why'd you do that? People will ask me. And I'll go, did you watch the video? And they'll go, no, I didn't! I just skipped! Tell me why! And it's like, well, you didn't watch. Who cares? Who cares? A lot of people think that I'm going to rate Occultist low just because of weird, and honestly, I don't care much about weird anymore. Like, the moment you get away from pressing weird on this character, weird reconstruction, the character gets better. So it's actually a buff to get rid of it for him. But like, sack stab damage is alright, you know, the crit's alright, and everything's trying to generate unchecked power. Like, that's all it is. Every single path is like, I need unchecked power to do the attack I'm told to use on the path, and that's pretty boring design-wise. The debuffs are still okay on Wanderer, Weird's kind of whatever. It gives stealth, which is whatever, it's fine, I guess. Demon's Pull got nerfed. Bone Hex still the same on Wanderer at least. Binding Shadows, more stealth stuff. Like, the whole thing with Wanderer is it gets stealth and like tries to make combo or use combo, and it's just such a weird playstyle. Malediction on this is okay because you can make sure they always have combo, so it says gain 1 hit for 3 rounds, they get comboed, which means all your combos recycle, so it's actually a pretty good ability. Overall, Anamnesis, really no one pressed this before outside of Aspirant, and it's not great now either, because it takes a little bit to get to that up. Burning Stars still hits like a truck and ignores block, at least on Wanderer, so it's still good. Chaotic Offerings, pretty much the same. IIRC. Ritualist, this is where I really feel bad and stop enjoying this character, because Ritualist used to be my favorite path, regardless of the stronger weird. I didn't care that much about it, but just having consistent curses being able to stick, I like that playstyle where you can throw tokens on the enemy. Like that's what you're doing. Your whole playstyle is to put negative tokens on the enemy and interact with those to get favorable outcomes. And it's a lot better than these other paths, which are just punch it in the face. The unchecked power generation is really not that fun to interact with in my experience. I really don't like Weakening Curse and how it generates unchecked power. I don't like that Vuln Hex, you know, when the enemy dies, he gets unchecked power, and it's like, what do you do with this unchecked power? Well, you can do this really odd malediction that isn't that good. Like, the mastery's okay, but like, it's just not really that good overall. The reason being, it can give you like block plus, you know, so having this give block plus is probably one of the weakest things it can do. Like, I'd rather get strength, I'd rather get crit, I'd rather get dodge plus, you know, so getting block plus is whatever. So it's like 1 out of 3 times it's gonna brick, essentially. The Anamnesis, I believe, is the exact same. Stars are the same. Chaotic Offering. So it's like the thing that changes, besides Weird, the Weird's actually okay because it's token removal, which is a hard thing to achieve in this game, getting rid of negative tokens consistently. And he's able to do that with 2 up, but generating the up is not fun. So between unfun ways to get up tokens and what you do with them being kind of crappy, I don't think Ritualist is that good. Warlock is actually very powerful. And the reason I don't want to put this character higher, specifically because this path is silly. This is the one that started a lot of these bad design choices where Chaotic Offering was a passive you had to equip. He had this passive as just a passive before. It was just in the sheet. He would just generate up sometimes. And then you could press Chaotic Offering if you wanted to. But now they changed it so it has to be on the bar. They just don't give him a regular passive anymore. And so you generate your up, and what do? Spam stars. So what we've been doing on Occultist for 4 years is spamming burning stars, and guess what? You get to do it again. This time it's dumber. Anamnesis is pretty cool, but like, a lot of enemies don't get a ton of positive tokens. There are a couple enemies in the game that this will kind of dumpster because of how they do tokens, but it is not many. Most of the time, this is hitting something with like 2 or 3 positives. So it's like a 10 damage hit, although it does double up from the unchecked power. Otherwise, it's stars. The Malediction, also, forgot all about this. The first 2 iterations, the worst move in the entire series. This one is slightly better because they made the healing yourself more consistent and stronger, and then they made the healing the enemy a bit weaker. It was better than it was, but this is still not a great move. And then the reconstruction on this one gives you regen, which is pretty cool. Aspirant, one I had high hopes for. But again, just it comes down to like dancing Occultist, and you're just trying to RNG up some unchecked power tokens so you can hit stars. Like, it's, what is it? The Malediction's pretty good for boss killing. The Weird Reconstruction's alright. But really, you're just trying to dance him around to hit stars. Ideally, you don't press an attack that is not stars, because he gets moved around by the party enough to where he can generate up and get stars that way. You know, this way you don't have to spend turns using these garbage knife attacks. You just spam the rock. Yeah, with Occultist in mind, I think a lot of it just comes down to like build up, hit stars. And that's what he's been doing forever. And it's the same thing now. It's like outside of stars, he doesn't really contribute much besides like his curses, but on the curse path, they made the curses worse. Next, Plague Doctor. This was probably the toughest one to rate, even though she's like in the same spot I always put her. Because PD did go through the update. She did get worse in a few ways. She got better in some ways too. And outside of her paths, she's kind of a different character. Wanderer plays like the old Plague Doctor you're used to. She lost all of the blanket resist penetration from her other paths, which is fair, but then also kind of limits her effectiveness. Surgeon is not great by any means, although it would just be nice if the bleed was a bit higher. And the other utility stuff's okay. Alchemist, you still get like really big crits, and that can do some cool stuff, but it wants a bunch of DOT on the enemy, so when they have one dot and you hit them with a different dot, it's going to do something else. And so you're supposed to stack every damage over time effect on an enemy, which is pretty good with like Aspirant Occultist. And that way you can end up stacking a bunch of effects pretty efficiently and pretty quickly. And then for some reason they gave her Power Creep Firefly. I'm still trying to figure that one out, but it's also there. They gave her a bunch of dot bombs. Like, Cause of Death on every path does some kind of, like, massive damage spike, and in some way or another, it's either for Surgeon, you know, doubling damage over time. Alchemist just does a bunch of different stuff. Wanderer kind of acts like the same thing, and then Physician is weird, like a utility version, and not as good. And then you come down to Physician, where Physician has some okay stuff, but it's like not the best, although they did change it so emboldening is single target instead of AoE, which I think is actually the better change. And she gets guaranteed combo every time she swings Incision, and then guaranteed weaken every time she throws Noxious. So she can always throw out weaken and always throw out combo. Both of those things are pretty good, and that makes Physician decent. So none of her paths are bad at all. Like, by any means, none of her paths are bad. Some take a little bit of effort to get the juice out, but otherwise, you know, if you just look at what she brings to the table, it's always consistent healing, dot removal, token mitigation. She always brings those, and anything else is a bonus, and every team wants those things. So she's pretty good. Why is she not top tier? Because she doesn't break the game like she used to with Alchemist, and also each path has like a few clunky moves that you just don't want to press ever. It's not like Flag, where most of the time he's just breaking the game, Man-at-Arms breaking the game every time he does something, and Bounty Hunter designed to be broken. If you want those comparisons. Bonnie came out the other side of the update kind of mid. The Bonnie Runaway really wants to have some friends there to either help her or capitalize on all of her stuff, like Smokescreen. And they tried to nerf Smokescreen during the update with her, and the community backlash pretty hard. So what they ended up doing was they kept the original powered, like super powerful Smokescreen on Wanderer, which is fine. Arsonist, and on Arsonist, you are almost never wanting to press Smokescreen anyway, even though it's really good, because the whole goal of this path is to self-burn and then nuke the enemy and kill them on like turn 2. Survivor, it got changed, so it's not a nerf, they just took it away. With Survivor also, it's got this gimmick of going into stealth and like doing stuff, which is kind of weird. Like, the way it ends up working out is, like, she'll taunt with Smokescreen, get hit a bunch of times, and then go into stealth after she's already taken all the damage from that stuff. And once she's in stealth and safe, you press something and she removes all of her stealth immediately to do like a boosted thing. She can't use one stealth token at a time to get a couple good turns of powered up moves. No, she just spends them all right away anyway. So Survivor is just kind of not good. Like, the whole path devolves into pressing Smokescreen, you know, throwing out a couple debuffs with it, getting your stealth tokens, and then like hearthlighting yourself. And that's like whatever. They also did this really annoying thing with Cauterize, where they change it so it can always heal 1 HP even if they're not bleeding. And this was to circumvent a bug that she had, where if the target wasn't bleeding, they would still lose pips because she's not healing them, even though she is unable to do it. So instead of fixing the issue, they papered over it, they put a lampshade on it, if you will, and just made it so Cauterize always heals 1, so when that happens, well, it's either I heal 1, and lose 2 pips somewhere else, or I save this person who's bleeding to death and lose the 2 pips there, but at least it's justified. However, by not fixing the problem, they introduced it again in Hearthlight, which can only target units that have stealth. The same bug exists. If the unit doesn't have stealth, they're still going to get mad at her for not healing them, and it's the exact same bug that shouldn't exist, but it does just because we made it so that there's a workaround instead of an actual fix. And then also for Survivor, whenever she gets healed 3/4 or lower, she gets a dodge token. I wish this was just healed in general, just so you could prime it. You know, like you can just give her a random regen from an item or Flagellant or something, and she can like prime up her dodges to hit smokescreen. But like the way it ends up playing out is it's just a really slow path, because you do your smokescreen, you get hit a bunch on the first turn, you go into stealth, you heal with like Hearthlight, and you might get some dodge, and then you press it again for next turn when you have dodge, or like the couple turns down the line. I see the idea behind it, but at the end of all of this, it came out to be not that good. Orphan can do some interesting damage. It's got this whole paragraph of stuff talking about stable rank, and this is like the most confusing thing ever made for new players. Basically, if she starts in point A at the start of the turn and ends in point A, she gets the stable buff. If she starts in A and ends in B, she gets the other buff. Even though she can go A, B, C, D, get moved all around the entire party, and then put back into A, it's still stable. And that whole thing of paragraph right here, this explanation does all of that, explains that to you, but it's like, it's ass. It ends up going down into what Runaway was before anyway. Like Old Orphan was rank 1 ransack spam or rank 4 firefly spam. That's what it became. Yes, there's a little bit of tech you could do with Dragonfly in rank 2 into 3. Not really that strong, I would argue, which means that Orphan just didn't really change. It got a little bit stronger in some ways, and she doesn't have the huge HP cut anymore. But like, she sits in the back and throws bombs, or sits in the front and spams ransack, and you have someone move around her so she gets the damage buff. Or she sits in the back and no one moves her and she gets the damage buff. So this ended up not really changing, even though it looks like it did. They also nerfed smokescreen on this one too by giving you a different version. Thinking about it, I'm gonna just move her down. Like, she got some buffs and they took away smokescreen from 2 out of the 4 paths, and they made some other stuff really clunky. Like, I just hate Survivor. Orphan plays the exact same. Arsonist is not nearly as safe as Ravager, because Ravager has ways to mitigate Death's Door, has ways to bounce off a Death's Door, whereas Arsonist just birds herself and hopes she can kill the enemy before they kill her. The last one is Vestal. Vestal went through changes, of course, but Vestal is an interesting one. As far as paths and stuff go, Wanderer got a little bit better. It's just pretty consistent and safe. Confessor is the best path on the character. Like, far and away. It's got token management, like negative token mitigation. It can just remove positives. It's not just like dodge or stealth. Like, this actually gets rid of riposte. It gets rid of crit. Those are the hardest tokens to get rid of. And she can do that for free. Analyte's like whatever. New weak tokens helps it a bit. And then, like I said, Mantra removes negative tokens, which is fantastic. Chaplain got a really good buff, and it's fun. But Chaplain needing the mastery to make Mantra get the half effects is kind of ass. I'd rather this was on base and it just stayed there, and then like the mastery did something else, but it doesn't. So like, the mastery points really just gives a 10% healing if you have 2 conviction tokens, and you can split the healing, so it's like 15% healing minus 1 stress on a guarded target. Like, that's kind of bad. It's like, I'd rather not master this unless you have 2 guards on the team, then you can really spread it around, but it's a specialized thing. I'm starting to think Seraph is actually not that good, just because those super long cooldowns on these mean they're not that flexible. And having them not be super flexible can be a pain in the ass, because you can sit there and have nothing to do for like 2 turns. Whereas the old consecrations, you could have stuff to do every couple turns, and that's totally fine. The other thing too is I don't like the consecration or the conviction gain on Seraph. So Wanderer, you get it naturally every turn. Confessor, you get it naturally every turn. Chaplain, she has to get hit, which is okay because she's up front. And then with Seraph, it has to be a consecration tick. So you have to put both of them down to get 2 a turn. And she's really slow, so she's going at the end of the turn anyway. So she's likely not getting the first one until the start of turn 2. Whereas if she was any other pass, she would likely have 2 conviction on turn 2. And then you put down the other consecration. Again, she's slow as hell. So putting down the next one means she has 2 consecration at turn 3, but then she gets 2 a turn after that. But if it's not a boss fight, most fights usually end around turn 4. So turn 3, you pretty much sealed it. And then turn 4, you're probably cleaning up stalling and whatnot. That's usually the normal pace of most fights in the game. And then boss fights go like 6, 7, 8 turns. So with Seraph, you still get the 1 consecration cast per regular fight anyway. You just get slower conviction outside of bosses. So Seraph's a little bit better for bosses compared to Wanderer, but I don't even think Seraph's that good. I said it. Alright, that's it for the tier list. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you're thinking down below in the comments. If you skip to the end, you suck. But I understand. I've done it too. Just don't say anything in like the comments or out of context or something where you go, he did this. Did you watch the video? No, I looked at the picture. So I don't want to engage with that. You look silly. Alright, I'm out of here. Thanks for watching.